Hello, everybody. My name is Nolan Brewer. Welcome to Artist Corner. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, Orchid Mantis.
Orchid.
Ah, I just
You're not the first to pronounce it that way.
I just remembered a conversation I had with my friends about that, and I remembered that they asked me how I pronounce your artist name. I should have asked you. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I don't mind either way. Band names don't matter, you know. It's just an identifier, and
It's
people know what to look up.
It's embarrassing for me because I'm the interviewer, but I will try my best to remember that.
No worries.
Well, anyway, thanks for joining me today.
hmm
So I wanted to ask, who are some artists or musicians you've recently been listening to?
Uh, so I will say, like, I don't listen to music quite as much as I used to. I mean, still, like, obviously, I still listen to it a lot. And I keep up with certain artists that I'm like kind of following their releases. A new band that I was really into the last couple of months is this band called Chanel Beads. Um, they I don't know. They have a very unique sound and a very unique approach to a very common genre, which is kind of like art pop, like indie type stuff, like stuff that's supposed to be pretty catchy, but is still like kind of out there instrumentally and a lot of like creative musical choices. Like they don't have a lot of guitar in their songs, but they have these like string instruments that sound sort of like a guitar, but are like more like it's really weird because like the guitars they'll use sometimes sound like medieval or something like that, but it doesn't come across that way at all when you listen to them. It fits right in. And interesting vocals too that are kind of almost like hyper pop influenced, and that like I think he does some pitch shifting and stuff. But yeah, his stuff is great. There's something really addictive about his songs.
Hmm.
Other artists, see, a lot of what I listen to is like I think that's kind of something that happens when you get older. Is you mostly listen to the stuff you already like and already kind of know of, and every now and then you find something new. But I these days I listen to a lot of like ambient stuff. Like I still listen to this Japanese artist Ray Harakami all the
Let's
time. His
go.
music is so easy to just put on in the background. It's such like calming and interesting music. Um, yeah, I don't know. Um, in like the indie circle, the my biggest kind of like new obsession over the last several years was like Big Thief. Like I've followed everything Adrian Linker has done and just been obsessed with her songwriting for like since I found her. So I yeah. In terms of new artists, that's kind of it.
Are there any obscure artists that you would recommend to people?
I mean, it depends on taste. I have some weird like deep cuts that made a big impression on me and the music that I wanted to make when I was younger. Um, like the one of them would be maybe uh, people know the band like Black Moth Super Rainbow. They were a lot more popular like a decade or so ago, you know, when I was in uh, high school. But he has his first project called Falling Through a Field has a very different sound that's a lot more like low fidelity from the stuff he made later. And he did all kinds of cool things with the instrument. It's like what's cool about that album to me is that now the last couple of years there's been this whole like burgeoning art and visual and like music genre of like weirdcore. And that album is like um just exactly like that. It's perfectly in that sort of weirdcore genre. It's got these really like almost like toy keyboard style like synthesizers and like kind of really old drum loops that are sampled from like old records. The vocals in that album are all like recorded to like a tiny like probably like a micro cassette recorder or something, but they sound like really noisy, and he's like whispering instead of singing. And all of it ends up sounding like really just bizarre and like weird, but also really like comforting and like um regressive in terms of like it makes you feel like a child kind of, but also like really psychedelic too. And so it's I'm dead certain that one of these days one of the songs from that album is going to like blow up on TikTok, and it's going to, because it's just a perfect environment for it right now. But I've always loved that album. Another one would be similarly, like there's an album that I listen to all the time. Again, when I was younger, that it's the self-titled album by an artist called Express Rising. He kind of was doing the same sort of thing in the same sort of movement as like DJ Shadow and some of these other kind of artists that were doing like sample-based music when that first kind of became a thing, which like of course was happening in hip hop all the time. But the difference with that kind of whole scene was just that it was all like instrumental music. But a lot of them would obviously be like making beats for rappers and such. But Express Rising was like a contemporary of DJ Shadow and made like more kind of minimal and less like structured stuff that really, really sounds like the sort of lo-fi hip hop that is popular now. But a lot more like sample based and a lot more kind of a lot less clean. Like not more creative, but like more a little bit, yeah, like I said, it's just a little bit less clean. And it was also an album that was made entirely out of samples. Like so that's kind of interesting to know, is like, you know, he didn't touch an instrument to make that album. He just sampled old records and put it all together. And like that was super inspiring for me, for sure, when I first started making music, because a lot of my early stuff was kind of sample based, or I would write songs around samples, because it kind of helped me have a springboard to like making something. I was always kind of scared of like the blank canvas of just like anything can happen. You have to take the first step. All that was like really challenging for me starting out. So that's like a way that album had a big impact on me. Yeah. And I've always loved sample based stuff. It's really interesting. All of it is.
I want to go back to that in a bit, but earlier you mentioned genres such as art pop and weirdcore. Sometimes I find myself, there's so many different, I don't know how to explain it. There's so many subgenres of genres and genres that it gets a little complicated after a while. Does that ever?
Yeah, with the internet, everything has become more and more niche, where like really specific genres, and like that happen. And it is like in the past, there were always like subgenres of like alternative or subgenres of like electronic, and it would get really niche, but like often it was just considered a scene. You know, like they didn't need to say, oh, this is this kind of music. It was just like, oh yeah, there's a couple people and they're making something that sounds like this. Like, but you know, the internet makes it very easy for us to put a label on everything, in terms of music.
Do you think it might be better to not focus too much on genre as a musician, or does it really matter?
I mean, yes and no, because like I'm a big like advocate for like limitations and restrictions in music, like specifically when you're writing and recording, because I think they kind of help you have like, it's the same as how if you're writing, it's the same as how like people will say that if you're writing like stories, you know, if you're writing a book or a script or something like that, and you're trying to make a good script or like written piece in a certain genre, then like the good works of that genre are often the ones that have like subverted the genre. Like if you're writing a mystery novel, like a mystery novel that will stand out will be one where the mystery genre is like subverted somehow. You do something that you don't expect in that genre. And I think and that's an illustration of like how you set these certain restrictions. Like, I'm working in this genre, these are some common motifs in the genre, this is what instruments they use and song structures, and then you try to kind of like divert from that and kind of build some sort of interest through that. So I think like, and I do that a lot with my recordings, especially these days, where I kind of think I want to make like a song in this sort of genre, or I'm going to learn how to make a certain genre, and I kind of work at that for a while. And then once I feel like I've got an understanding of it, I try to do something a little bit more interesting with it, to my ears. But at the same time, that's something you can definitely get lost in, and it can also lead to This is something I'm very like cognizant of these days as I record. Is that having taking that approach can um, it has the pitfall of you kind of getting set in a certain sort of formula that you've learned to do. And like, even if you're trying to make something more interesting, or you're like, I'm just going to record something and see what happens, the more that you are like very aware and knowledgeable of how to accomplish certain genres or how to approach certain genres, the more that like you will just naturally kind of um, self self censor like the ideas that you're having. So I think that like uh, I think that whatever you're doing, you just have to be intentional about it. There's times where I sit down to record where I think anything goes with this, and just like do what feels right for yourself. And other times where I have a specific goal. But I think that both of those approaches to music are equally valuable, and I think that everybody should be doing both because, I mean, that's what you want, right? It's just like all sorts of results, all sorts of ideas, all sorts of, yeah.
Yeah. So from my understanding, you can do it either way, and it's just up to you and how you want to express yourself.
In so many words, yeah, that's the it is about how you express yourself and what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah.
For people who don't know, you've done a lot of great pixel art and music for video games. What do you think inspires you to learn different styles of art alongside music?
mm, it's part of like the way I see it. People have different motivations for creating things, and I've known people who were um, very specifically like interested in creation, as a way of like expressing themselves or like working through like how they're feeling. So that's like one way you might want to create. That might be what motivates you, but another thing that can motivate you is you just like enjoy learning crafts and becoming skilled at them, and like the kind of growth and skill is sort of its own reward and like satisfaction for you. Um, and often those people will be very kind of focused on like doing things the right way, learning the right things. Those people will learn like music theory and become really knowledgeable in that, and like and that's also one motivation. Another one could just be that you like the like exploration and like satisfaction of like specifically like just bringing something into the world, of like this thing didn't exist and now it does, and I just like sat down, and that kind of feeling of productivity of like at the end of the day, I didn't just like sit and watch a TV show. Like something new exists because I put that time forward. So the I'm getting off track, but my point is
No
that these are
worries.
all these different motivations, um, and I think part of why I haven't limited myself, or why I've been motivated to try all these different things and like explore all over the place that way, learn pixel art, work on music for video games. I did like a soundtrack for a friend's short film like several years ago. Um, is because I it's like, even though I am trying to express myself a little bit, well, more than a little bit, my primary motivation is always just like that last one of like bringing something new into the world, like regardless of what it is, like any kind of act that, whether it's like whether it's like if someone hires me to make a song, I'll still have fun making that song. Like it might not have any of my personal expression in it, it might just be following the books, following whatever they asked of me, and I'll still enjoy it. Um and the other thing I was going to say about it is that it also is part of like, it's also a result of specifically how I consume media and how I consume art in general. Is that like I have that thing that like some people I know who create have, and some people who create that I know don't have, which is that they can't like consume anything without being like without being like immediately like oh, I should do something like that. Oh, that like inspires me. Oh, that's an interesting thing that I should write down to put later into this thing. Like I'm always kind of taking in information, and it's hard for me to enjoy something without it inspiring me to do something like that. So I, regardless, like even if I've spent most of my life artistically like making music, I there's never been a point where I wouldn't like play a video game and be like, oh, I want to make a game like that, or watch a movie and be like, oh, I want to make a movie like that. And so pixel art, game development, these new kind of interests that I've gotten into are really just things that I had always been interested in and inspired to explore, but had one, didn't have as much free time as I do now to explore those things, and two, I guess I did kind of become a little bit more confident in terms of like I can't actually do this if I sit down and put my mind to it, because like visual art especially was not something I thought I'd be good at. And I still don't think that it comes naturally to me, but I kind of just had to like brute force it and spend 2-3 years just practicing.
Do you have any advice for anyone out there who maybe wants to do similar things, but they don't feel as confident in themselves?
It's a hard thing to give advice on, because I think a lot of it is like about your natural disposition. That sort of question is the type of question where like whatever you answer, people are going to say easier said than done, and that would be like completely fair, you know. But I do think that something really valuable, because I think that a lot of people who struggle to be confident about like making things, or who who feel like they get stuck in some part of the process when they try to do those sorts of things. Those people, I think one struggle there for them is feeling like they're feeling like their time is wasted if the result isn't like good enough for them, or feeling like they or just simply getting discouraged if the results aren't good enough for them, because like that's how it usually is for me too, starting out. Is like that's why it took me so long to learn pixel art, because I'd get inspired one day and I would make something and I'd be like, wow, this is not going to come naturally to me. I can't do this. And I think like the only like thing that I think I can share is that for that problem is that I think it's always helped me that I that I don't kind of like put too much value in like what I make on a given day. I don't like I try to consider like my time wasted if like the results aren't like what I'm hoping for, and instead think about like each kind of long session of like working on something as just like practice for the next thing. Like it's the same with writing a song. It's like even if like a song that you write doesn't turn out very good, if you do that 1,000 times, like there's going to be a point where the songs get better, and you also end up with some little gem that pops up as you're writing day to day. And so where I'm trying to go with that is like one, I think very useful exercise that I do a lot is just to not like shut off your brain, but just to make stuff as like a joke, like to make something like bad, like on purpose, to like make something without any intention for it to turn out like exceptional or
Make
great, like without expectations. Yeah, exactly. Make something stupid. Because that's like it's worth it to train your brain to be focused on like enjoying the process or having fun, rather than like trying to make great art or whatever. Like that's something that is still important, especially if you do want that, if you want to make something that you're really proud of. Like of course you can't just mess around all the time, but you have to have a healthy balance of the two, because if you don't, then I think that that's where you start getting into those unhealthy cycles of like, every time I sit down to work I can't make something good enough. Like, well, then sit down to work and just make something stupid, and like then you don't have the expectations, you know. No, you have to remember that nobody, like, my first pixel art was terrible, everybody's first pixel art was terrible, everybody's first song is terrible. It's all about whether you are it's all about whether you're putting in the time. A dumb thing that I have said to like musician friends, as I've seen like some of them record less and less, is just that, like, thing that will the only thing that'll stop you from success or like growth in your creative pursuits is to stop doing it. Like, that's the only guaranteed like end, you know. As long as you continue to do it, as long as, if nothing else, you are just doing it day to day, as long as you're sitting down and doing it, that you will improve, and a lot of mental things like this will start to make more sense. A lot of these things are things that I struggled with more when I was starting out, and these days I don't want to say zen about it, but I'm kind of like, anything goes, whatever. Like, it's become it's become, yeah, I don't know how to finish that.
I I was thinking about this while you were talking. I also wonder if there's a disconnection between some people and the artists that they listen to, maybe. Because I mean, I've been in this experience myself when I was younger, not really anymore, but I think there's times where you might put an artist you listen to on a pedestal, and I think that also creates an unhealthy balance and leads you to not be confident. Because I think at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, really, I think we're all just people, and if someone else has the same 24 hours in a day as you, so why can't you also make the art that you want to make?
Totally. Like on a basic level, like, every artist who's made like incredible stuff that you love, they also have a hard drive full of terrible music. You know, like you're only, when you listen to an artist, or when you, in any artistic field, when you like consume an artist's work, you're only getting the best of the best, you know. But you, as a creator, you have to deal with all of your horrible stuff, and like know that it exists, and know that that song you wrote yesterday was terrible, and that song before that was terrible, but they have too. It definitely is like a matter of perspective that way, a little bit. And also, yeah, I agree with what you said about like we put people on kind of pedestals, and um it's very easy to psych yourself out of thinking that you are capable. I mean, it's a myth of like talent in art, is
Yeah.
like, talent, I'm sure it exists, and I'm sure that it helps, but like 99% of it is just dedication. And I think like going back to what I said earlier very quickly, like, I think that the key to being dedicated is to optimize your ability to like enjoy doing what you're doing, to have fun doing it. Like that's the other thing that I've told people, is that if there's any part of making music, if there's any part of creating art that is like deeply unenjoyable for you, I really think you should find some way to avoid it. Like whatever step of the process it is, there are always like weird ways to get around it. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know if that
and
makes any sense. It's something that's harder. It's easier to explain in like specific examples, but
that's I think that's the
yeah,
great thing about art too, and just creativity in general. If you don't enjoy doing something, you can just stop.
yeah. I mean,
No
a really
one's
simple, dumb example would be like, if you hate like doing the coloring work on like visual art, like, just do it in black and white. If
that's
you really
another
don't want to learn an instrument to make music, make electronic music. If you really hate sitting at a laptop, you should buy like one of those really old like digital recording things, and like do it with your hands and mess with the knobs. Like, find the right way to do it that's the most fun for you, and it gets way easier.
and that's another example of setting limitations.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like when I started out, I really did not enjoy making music, and found it really stressful because of how much I knew that I didn't know. Like I didn't know how to mix properly. I didn't know the effects that I wanted to use. The synthesizers I was using, they didn't sound right. There was just too many things that I needed to learn. So my solution to that was that I was listening to a lot of music that was recorded on like cassette tape, and like they would just record on like old boom boxes and stuff. And so I bought like a 4-track tape recorder, and that was like my set of limitations that I was able to grow through, is just that a 4-track cassette recorder has an EQ on it with 3 knobs, 4 inputs that you can record something to. And once you filled those 4 channels with like the 4 instruments and like set the EQs the best you could, the song had to be finished. There wasn't anything you could do with it after that. The song, there wasn't any room for you to add or do anything else or put any effects. And that was so useful for me because it forced me to just work quickly rather than sit with a song for years at a time being like, this could maybe be better in this certain way. And I think I took that with me a lot because I've always been someone who like writes and records very quickly as a result of that. But that's just like low attention span, low patience.
I don't know why that kind of reminded me of how games used to not really do updates when they would just ship out
Mm-hmm.
to the, they would ship out on a console or whatever, and they couldn't
Mm-hmm.
do any updates for the PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2 or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. It's a similar thing, especially in how um it, like video game companies, it's the same as like if you're working quickly on a song and getting it out and going to the next thing. Is like that was more of a thing in early video game development, was that people like would just make the product and then start in the next thing and like improve and like try to make an even better game next time. And it is kind of sad how like a lot of AAA gaming has realized, as they've gotten greedier, that like it's financially better to make one game and then stretch that game out as far as you can, because if you want to make a new game, you're probably going to have to update the engine. You're going to have to hire new people. You're going to hire an enormous amount of concept artists and just designers in general to figure out what the game is going to be, how it's going to work, what the gameplay mechanics are going to be, all that stuff. There's so much investment cost that is not there if you're just going to keep adding DLC to the game that you finished.
Yeah. I try to stay away from AAA games personally. Not to say
Same.
there's no good ones at all or anything, but it's just not my style.
Yeah, I consume video games for, I mean, there's a whole separation people make between like, I guess, like art games and games that are like focused on the gameplay. Um and I love both. I mean, I think most people do, obviously. But like I think I will say that like gameplay is kind of about how much fun you can have playing the game, and uh art games are able to do something that I'll admit I kind of value more, which is like leave kind of a lasting impression, like kind of make you think and like give you like an experience the same way like a movie or a song will. And so those are the games that usually stick with me longer. That said, like I played the FromSoft game Sekiro like a month or two ago, and that was like the most fun I've had in like years with a video game, or really like at all. Like that, it was just so good and so satisfying.
I would
But
suck at it.
Oh, I mean, I sucked at it for a while, and then it just clicked. But what I'm trying to say is that I we connected through fan games of Yume Nikki, and like I didn't play Sekiro and think I need to make a Sekiro fan game. I just had fun, enjoyed myself, and got out. But with Yume Nikki, something that leans more towards an art game, there's just so much inspiration there.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I can understand why you'd stick to that side of things, because it feels more valuable in a certain sense. I mean, maybe valuable is not the right word, but
I think I get it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is my cat. He jumped on. Well, actually, this is my girlfriend's cat, but he jumped onto my lap.
I've been hearing him run around.
Yeah, you can hear his little bell.
Do you get inspired by things outside of art itself?
It's a good question. Um, yeah. I think like I it is actually something that kind of bothers me is like when I first started making music, I think that was more the case than it is now, for whatever reason. I mean, I think it's a little bit getting older and kind of everything around you and all the experiences you're having are less and less novel. Like by the time you're older, you're not having as many first experiences anymore. But I remember when I started out, like I would very much like be thinking like I want to make a song that feels like this like place or like I'd be in the woods like walking around or something and like see something pretty and like I don't know, for some reason it would give me ideas musically somehow. And I think like these days that's still the case, but it's more like a lyrical thing because that comes so much more naturally with lyrics. Like that is something that happens to me all the time, that I'm like, especially when I'm traveling, is just that like I'll be sitting with my thoughts and like kind of experiencing something or feeling a certain way, or often just kind of being in a certain place and think like I need to like find a way to create like a moment in song out of that. um and so, I mean, that's part of why I these days a lot of my lyrics come from just one long like lyric note that I have on my phone, um, which like I was hesitant to pursue at first because I kind of like writing lyrics as I'm writing the song itself and like hearing the song, because often the lyrics maybe go together better. But these days I've moved more towards just pulling lyrics from my phone that I've already pre-written and kind of like messing with them to fit like a song, if I feel like the two go together well. But the reason I like doing it that way is because I think I end up, instead of just making up something on the spot and being like, I don't really know what this means, or I don't really know what this is about. Those lyrics are always definitively about something. They're about a certain place or about a certain feeling I have. And so they start to feel more like real moments that I can remember rather than something I kind of just threw together.
It's funny, I was gonna ask you about lyrics, but you answered all the questions I was gonna ask about.
Okay.
So that's great.
Lyrics are fun. I started out like with them being, I mean, I think they have always been the part of making music that I value the least. I put effort into them, but like I will say that I'm more focused on whether the song sounds good than whether the lyrics are good enough.
Mm.
Um, that said, it's more like what is or isn't a deal breaker. I mean, obviously, I want the lyrics to be good. My selection process for lyrics is incredibly simple, which is just like, when I look at them, do they like feel right to me? Do they like make me? Do they give me some sort of feeling from them? Like often I will have a certain thought or like be trying to write a song about a certain thing, and then the lyrics will end up kind of really different, concretely from the thing that I was talking about. Like I'll be thinking about like like a memory from like a breakup or a memory from like hanging out with my friends or just some specific thing, and then I try to describe that thing and it goes completely off the rails, and suddenly like something has happened in the lyrics, in the story of the lyrics, that is totally different from what happened in real life.
Mhm.
But if it feels right and I read those words and they like, there's just a feeling of like this clicks or it doesn't click, I guess. And that's really like all that I look for these days. In the past, I was more specific about like, oh, I want to be really metaphorical, or I want to be really abstract, or I want to get really specific. And like, I don't think about that as much these days. I just kind of go with my gut.
Mm. It's interesting because when you say that, it reminds me of when I started writing, and for a while I was really focused on learning music theory and all of that stuff. And I think I was even too focused on it to where I was maybe ignoring how I was feeling when I was writing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny,
Mm-hmm.
I think when you start making music or doing any of these things, you kind of focus a lot on the technical aspects at first because you're just learning it and everything. But then
Yeah.
after a while, once you start to notice progress, you're just going off of feeling. It's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, music theory can never be more than like a foundation. You have to do something interesting with it from there. If you don't have ideas, then you don't have anything. Like, um, my experience starting out was like, I mean, I know some music theory, and I took like guitar classes and such, so I learned like some of the very basics. But like my experience starting out was I was extremely like texture focused. I was extremely focused on like the sound of the song and getting that right, rather than like making the actual chords and like melodies interesting, or like that sort of thing. And these days, as I actually veer more technical, yeah, it's I don't know. It was sort of the opposite trajectory for me.
It's always interesting to think about.
Hmm.
Speaking of chords, what are some common chord voicings that you think people should learn about for ambient music?
Mm. Ambient music is really tough. I mean, like because like when I'm making ambient music, it is very like um just going on gut feeling.
Yeah.
Um like I still don't know how to play piano very well. I do think that if you make ambient music, you should have a MIDI controller if you don't. Because like it's I've seen people make great things with just the laptop keyboard and just writing things out on the MIDI roll. But there like even if you cannot play piano at all and have no idea how to play, um having the keyboard there, you can kind of be surprised what you come up with through trial and error. That's usually how I write. Chords and melodies outside of guitar, is just kind of messing around on the piano until something makes sense. I think that like I've always been a huge fan of seventh chords, and because
Extensions
of
are always
how little
great.
music theory I know. Huh?
Extensions are always great for ambient music.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that's like I think actually one of my like we mentioned the artist Ray Harakami earlier, and he's an example of an ambient musician who clearly knows a lot of theory, is able to write really interesting chord progressions because he knows what's going on. And so his music can be really frustrating for me sometimes, because I'll be listening to something and be like, that is like the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I should try making something like that. And like I can't, because the chords and melodies, especially in synthesizer and like piano and such, are very like just like discovery based for me. I just mess around until I discover something that sounds good, but I can't write out an arrangement or an idea or like make a kind of planned chord progression that way. So I can't be as intentional about it. It ends up being more exploratory. Um,
Yeah.
that said, seventh chords when in doubt. I love seventh chords.
Me
And I'm
too.
not above using MIDI chords either. I try not to, but like sometimes just to start something out, it can be useful because you can also kind of learn from MIDI chords. I mean, you should never pay for them. There's a
Oh yeah.
million free MIDI chord packs. It's just, or
Why would
learn
you?
theory. That's the better way.
Learning theory is free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At least learn four chords. I think you can get really far
Mm-hmm.
with that.
Oh yeah. And that's the other thing is like chord. This is a really hot take, but in my opinion, chords matter way less than a melody. Like,
Mm.
and part of how I know that is the insane amount of beautiful songs people have written on guitar with just like the G chord and the C chord, which I think is like a fourth interval, right? Maybe I'm wrong.
Wait, is C
It's
and
like
a G?
one to the five. I don't know. Yeah, C to a G
Yeah,
or a
it's one
G
to
to
the
a C.
five.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. It's just you just do two chords for the song, but you write a really nice like melody over that. You sing a really nice vocal part, and
Yeah,
suddenly the song is like so much more than just two repeating chords. Um,
I think folk
and
music
and
is a
like
great
yeah,
example of that.
hmm?
Folk music, I think that's a
Yeah,
great
yeah,
example.
exactly. I mean that's like where I came from, and that like when I first started learning guitar, this was just kind of all circumstance. Like it wasn't really something I chose for myself necessarily, but like my guitar teacher was like specifically kind of like really into blues music and always taught all of his students like blues music, and was very focused on teaching you in a way where you would be able to learn to improvise, and two, learn to like play on stage and kind of get over the stage fright. So we had like weekly jams and such where we would just play through like common blues songs. And because of how blues is, most of them are written in the 12-bar blues structure, which there are like obviously a million variations of. But like the 12-bar blues structure basically meant that he could teach us like, okay, if we're in this key, then the 12-bar blues is going to be 1 1 1 1, then 5 5 5 5 1 1 1 1 7 7 5 5 1, back down. We knew the pattern, we knew the chord pattern. So as long as he told us a key, we would know what the root chord was, and we would know where to go from there and where to go from there. And so we didn't need to know the song. He could say, okay, we're playing this song today. And you'd be like, I never heard that song before. And it doesn't matter. You can get on stage and play it because it's a 12-bar blues. You already know the song to a certain extent. And it was the same thing with soloing too, improvising. It was like, the key, that the pentatonic scale will work, and I mean, all that is to say, like, think about how many incredible blues songs there are that are all just using a 12-bar blues song or 12-bar blues structure. It's just what you do with it. They're all just tools that you make something from.
Yeah, exactly. And I think music is also about storytelling. So even if you're just using simple ideas, if you can learn how to make that into a really good story, that's what counts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's why I hope that albums will always remain a thing, is because like you can tell a very complex and interesting story in a song, but you can really do something incredible with an album. And that's always been something really valuable to me, and it's part of why I've always tried to make albums as much as I can. I mean, these days I put out a lot more like EPs and just little singles and such, but like I really love consistent projects that have a sort of defined sound or topic or story to tell. The albums of mine that I've been most proud of are the ones that have felt more like most conceptually solid, I guess.
With albums too, it's almost as if you're creating a whole world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you really get to explore a certain space. Like I have an album that I'm hoping to release in a couple months that is very specific in the sound of it, and all the songs have a very similar approach and do a lot of different things in it. But it's like a really specific niche that I'm exploring, and like that can be really fun because you get to explore all the different variations of something that you already like, and like discover some new places that it can go.
Are there any genres that you aren't a fan of but would make music in?
Any music that I make, I'm a fan of that genre. And I'm also very not picky about like genre or like what music I listen to. I mean, the only like pickiness that I have is that I have always just gravitated more towards like calm music. And I kind of realized that more and more as I hung out with different people, dated different people, whatever, and they'd put on like bands that I definitely liked. Like there's a lot of like kind of emo and like hardcore stuff that people will put on, and I'll be like, this is so cool. There's so much happening here that's interesting to me. These vocals are so like expressive. There's so much energy in this, and I love it, but I don't put it on. I will never feel compelled to put it on, not even as a conscious thing. Like I think if I consciously thought to put it on, I'd put it on and probably enjoy it, but it's just not what I gravitate towards. It just doesn't occur to me. I put on some weird drony stuff because it's just what feels right to me.
I relate to that.
Yeah, and that's kind of a thing. Is it's like I will say to get to your exact question, I would love to make some stuff that's like that. I would love to make some stuff that's a lot more energetic and a lot more kind of free, in the sense of like, I always told myself, like, if I form like a kind of capital B band, you know, with like the bassist, drummer, guitarist, and we always play live. And when we record, we're recording what we do live. I would love to have a band where I could just like fucking scream at the top of my lungs.
Some hardcore metal.
Yeah, that it seems like so much fun to make and so like freeing. But so yeah, that's a genre I would love to explore musically that I don't put on in the background ever.
I just think that that was an interesting question to ask too, because there's music that you listen to and there's music that you make, and there's times where that can differ.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, and like I said earlier, like anything that like my big rule with music is just that I don't ever want to let myself make stuff that I wouldn't listen to or that like isn't interesting to me. And like and in the past, often I would kind of be like, maybe I shouldn't do much of this ambient stuff because like that's not the stuff that people that I've like established myself on or that people are gonna like want to hear from me or you know like I really focused in on like indie kind of interesting or like trying to make creative indie music for like years and um and I kind of kept ambient music on the back burner and then it ended up doing really well on Spotify over the last few years and I had just people reaching out and saying like when are you going to do another album like Holograph Tapes was the first ambient one I did. I had people reaching out
That's a banger.
and I was just exploring it on my own time and it was like I should just be doing this if I want to. And I feel kind of bad because like a lot of the music I made over the last 2 years, 3 years or so really has kind of departed from the older stuff I was doing and really just been exploring a lot. And so I kind of get scared sometimes like, oh, like I hope that I'm not like alienating people. But like at the end of the day, I tell myself that the more that I start to focus on like what people expect from me, the more that it's going to become less fun, you know? And also I think the work
Mm.
itself will suffer too. Like you can only try to make a song that you're not interested in making so many times or avoid making a song you are interested in making. Like if every time I want to make ambient music or some weird thing or some lo-fi thing, I tell myself, no, there's something more important to be made right now. It's just
Mm.
it's not going to have a good outcome. Um, that said, there's nothing I've done in the past that I don't revisit all the time. I mean, I have, like I said, that one album coming out that's very defined and a total left turn, and then I have another one coming out near the end of the year that's almost finished. That is very much a continuation of those like indie albums that I made starting out. Um,
I'm looking forward to
because it's
those.
not like something it's not like something I've moved past at all. It's just something that was on the back burner for a little while.
Do you want to name what the album titles are so people can stay tuned for that?
Mm.
Or have you not announced it?
I haven't announced it, but there's no reason I can't name them. The first one that's coming out in a couple months is the sort of slowcore project that's influenced by some bands like Low and Bedhead and Codeine and like the kind of early slowcore movement. I mean, everybody knows Duster. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
definitely Duster influenced, but like also influenced by some of the more like high fidelity stuff and such. And that album is going to be called Possession Pact, um, which is just it means something to me, but it mostly just sounded good.
Mm.
And it sort of continues that phrase was mentioned in the write up for the album that I put out last year. That's this whole other thing. And then the other album I'm releasing probably closer to the end of this year is called In Airports. And that one is I'm really excited about. I think like that album started to come together for me um, when I started to kind of because whenever I'm recording that type of album, like one that's kind of I always end up taking the same approach, which is just that I record and record and record and iterate and just have this giant project file or not project file, but folder of like 40 songs. And eventually I start to kind of like some of them start to go together or a certain amount of songs feel like they are something kind of new to me, and at that point I'll start to put them together, and if they fit together well, then I know the album is coming along. And there's a lot of stuff on that album that I've never explored before, and other stuff that is like I said, iterating on what I've done before and just kind of exploring further, trying different variations. Yeah.
It's really inspiring that you try so many different styles because I've listened to a lot of your albums and regardless of what style you try, it's always really pleasing to listen to.
Thank you. That means a lot. I mean, I one thing I can say about that is that I think it's been like useful for me to do that so much because it keeps music from becoming boring. You know, um, I see that in like to my mind, it must be kind of difficult being in like a like and having a defined sound for your band and just having to try to write a song that fits that sound over and over again. Like if I was in a band, I would always be like, oh, like we need. This sounds stupid, but like I would write a song and be like, this one should have like saxophones or something, you know, and then it'd be like, oh, how am I going to play this live? Now I have to hire like a saxophonist, you know, like I want to push somewhere, you know, go somewhere with it, and like I mean, obviously bands do that. Like I'm generalizing a lot, but music is a lot less boring when you don't limit yourself. And I also think like that I've always been uh, pretty manic isn't the right word, but I've always been pretty like uh, scattered in terms of like what I want to do musically when I sit down to record. Like, because it goes back to what I said earlier about being inspired by like everything you listen to. It's like it's hard for me to listen to music when I'm actively recording. I kind of try not to because I'll be in the middle of working on something and be like really excited about a song and then hear something and be like, oh, I have to stop everything I'm doing and make something that sounds like that right now. And then I just end up with like a mess of unfinished songs that I don't know what to do with. I have to kind of like, yeah, I have to work very hard to focus myself. But the really beneficial outcome of exploring so many different styles is that you learn stuff from each of them that you can draw into the other genre. Like ambient music, if I'm working on a pop song and just want something dreamy happening in the background, like if I hadn't made a bunch of ambient music, I wouldn't know what to put there. I wouldn't know like oh, I can use this synth, I can use this VST plugin, I can use this, you know, reverse delay, whatever it is that I've learned from ambient music, I can draw that back in there. Same thing with like I've made a lot of just like electronic beats and just stuff like that. That's probably the stuff that I've released the least of because it's honestly fairly boring even to me, but it's fun to make. And making drums for like these pop songs and such, it's the same thing. I end up pulling stuff out of there, and every genre teaches you different production choices, different ways of producing, different ways of mixing. You learn so much just by like being kind of a jack of all trades that way. I mean, the opposite of that is if you are someone who has become really good at writing songs, has become really good at playing an instrument, but hasn't recorded much at all. And so because you haven't recorded much at all, that's like your blind spot. And so now you can't ever have like a song recorded that you, even though you can write incredible music, you know. It's really these days, the entire world is available to you. You know, you can get Ableton Lite for like $10 if you buy the right product that comes bundled with it. And so if you want to be fully like free that way, that's the move, is just practice everything. Make sure that you can do all of it. You'll make more you'll have less no, I was gonna say otherwise you're having to go to a studio and pay someone for the studio time. Otherwise you're having to get your song mixed and pay someone to mix it for you. Like it all of a sudden it becomes a much more expensive hobby.
Yeah, for sure. Even even just mixing one song can be a bit pricey depending on who you're going to.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Mixing is not cheap.
It's a lot of fun though to do on your own, so I
Mm-hmm.
recommend it to anyone
As
else.
like a yeah, that's that mixing is definitely like a craft that you can hone. Like it's not as expressive or like creative as writing and recording, which
At
I do
least
kind
not
of like
instantly.
sometimes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
I
get to make
think,
a lot of creative decisions, but yeah.
yeah, I think in the long run, it takes a while to get better at mixing, but in the long run, it's really worth it.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
That's something I've been focusing on myself.
It's like it's something that I've really just picked up like slowly over the years. And I've never like I mean, I've only barely kind of watched actual tutorials and such and learned like I know most of the fundamentals, but like uh a lot of it has just been building up like best practices and just plugins that I know work well for what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
Do you ever get feedback on your music from friends or anyone?
Um yeah, I get the most of it on Instagram. Um and the ones that have meant the most to, because I mean I all of it is like really like every time that I go through it it makes my day better, but the ones where it really like not reinvigorates me but just like really reminds me that because I don't really like see my work as particularly like valuable in the sense that like I don't think that I'm like making anything uh particularly exceptional, which I think is how like pretty much all artists like see their own art is because they have their hands in the
Hmm.
soup or whatever the metaphor is,
You don't know
the
how good
phrase.
your own cooking
um
is?
yeah, you like you know, like we said earlier, you've heard the worst version of that song. You know, you
Yeah.
fixed your vocal delivery. Like,
And you know
but
how you made it. And when you listen to it, you can't
mhm.
think of anything else but that.
Not only that, but you're thinking about like your original vision that you had in your head, which is probably a lot better than the finished project. Like, which can be such a curse because like you might record something good, but you hate it because it didn't turn out how you hoped it would. You know,
Mm.
there's this invisible vision of the song that it has to live up to, which is something I really try to like avoid when I'm writing and recording. I mean, I like write songs. I try to write them as I'm recording them, so I try to like not sit down and spend like several weeks workshopping a song in guitar and then have it totally finished and know what I want it to sound like and then record it. I do
Mm.
that, but like not super often because I've never really enjoyed the results. Like I said, the vision always kind of gets in the way and I end up disappointed. So a lot of the time, instead, I will either just have like the most basic idea of like a verse and a hook and like the chords and kind of just be totally blank on the rest and then immediately start recording. Or often I will just sit down at my studio with everything set up, play, mess around on guitar until a certain set of chords stands out to me, record them, and then just start to build from there. And that recorded guitar part is the recording that will be on the record. I'm not even going to redo that. It's just the song is going to happen in real time, and I really like doing it that way because there's never some vision that you're going to be comparing it to. Like you are actively discovering the song as it's happening, so you don't have like that sort of second guessing or that sort of ideal version in mind that you're failing to materialize. um Sorry, I got off track from your question, but
No worries.
can you remind me of it?
Wait. Oh, this is gonna be embarrassing. I think I forgot what I even asked.
Then we should just go on. We should keep moving on.
As we've been talking today, though, I've realized that I really relate to your process in a lot of ways because you're talking about kind of writing things as you go, and
Mm-hmm.
I really relate to that because I come from a jazz background mostly, so I do a lot of
Mm-hmm.
improvisation and all that fun stuff. So when I'm writing, that's
Right.
kind of how I think of things.
Mm-hmm. It's so much more. I mean, if I can be like totally just biased and like subjective about this, it's so much more fun when music is like discovery rather than like planning and executing. Like I love that element of things, because like it's always how I've felt most comfortable with art in general, is like when I worked on like when I've done like visual art in the past, like something I always loved doing was collages, partly for that reason, because like you are able to make all of these decisions and try to make something that you like and that you think and that you feel like says something, but you're not having to start from a blank canvas.
Mm.
You're not having to like you're able to kind of like, yeah, I don't know. It's the same thing with like music for me. It's the same reason why I started out by like sampling songs and building stuff from those samples. When I first started out, it was the same thing of like um, bringing something new out from an existing thing. Um, and with music, you can kind of get that same result uh, from I don't know. It's hard to compare the two, but like that's how I try to make music. It's just by like what happens if I write this melody and then just start like playing stuff around it. And like I didn't have a plan for what that melody was going to have behind it. I just try things out and kind of um it's like shaving the marble off of a statue until you find the statue underneath, rather than like building a house from the foundation to the wood to the roof. I don't know.
I think I get it. Sorry, can I think for a second?
Of course, the I said people don't. I can't remember if we were recording, but I said I don't have any opportunities to just ramble about music like this, and
Oh
this
yeah, I
is the
remember.
reason why, because I can talk your ear off.
No,
It'd probably not make much sense either.
that's a great thing. It makes my job easier.
Fair.
What inspires your music videos?
Mm.
Sorry
My
if that's
music
a bit of
videos
a
are
vague
like,
question, by the way.
no, 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 no. I mean, I could generally just about my music videos. Like, I, I think it's like I know what I like. Um, I know what makes sense for my music. And I know, like I said, like what I've enjoyed in other music videos and such. Um, I think something that probably stands out about my music videos is that they're very like a lot of it is like uh, old footage um, and like more abstract rather than like a music video that tells a story or is like shot on like a nice camera. And a little bit of that was like just a product of necessity of like I didn't have like a great camera, and like I've always been something that I think has always been uh, present in the stuff that I make is that I am very picky about things, and that like I especially back then. Now I could probably make it happen if I really wanted to, but back then, like when I was making a lot of these early music videos, um, I used like public domain, like old like 8 millimeter films and such, because like even if I wanted to make a nice uh like well shot like music video with like my own camera or whatever, like yeah, I wouldn't be able to enjoy it because the camera wasn't good enough, or like the shots weren't good enough, or I didn't know how to color grade yet or whatever. Like I'm picky about it in that way, and that like if it's not going to turn out looking exactly how I wanted it to and looking as professional as I wanted it to, then like why bother? um but like with public domain footage and such, and the stuff you can find on Internet Archive, like old 8 millimeter home movies and such, like those looked exactly how I wanted them to, looked exactly like what I wanted like a video with that sort of format to look like. And these days I'm very different about that. Like you'll see some of my newest music videos, a lot of it I did a lot of shooting just on like my camera phone, um like just or my phone camera, just because I don't know. I started to like the idea of something really off the cuff like that. Like the last couple of videos I've put out were like that, and I think that's just my own like shifting approaches. Like when I was making videos before, they were inspired the by the sound of the song and like finding something that fit the song and a really an aesthetic approach of I used old home videos and such because they felt nostalgic and I was making songs that sounded nostalgic and I liked how they looked and the aesthetic made sense. But a lot of my newer videos are I like the approach better in some ways. I mean, obviously I do both, but I like this new approach a bit better because this new approach is like um, share something that like matters to me, something that and maybe it doesn't work for other people because they weren't there when I shot that footage. They it doesn't mean anything to them like it means to me. But I hope that if I like put my heart into it, then you like feel it. Like the music video for the song Good News from the album last year,
Oh, I
like
love that one.
half the footage is just my cats running around, but like it just made sense. And like I like that. I like the idea of making a music video for a song, like just put your just try to make a video out of footage from your life that like complements the memories that come into your head when you listen to the song you made. You know, like what is that song about to me? And like rather than tell like a story or find some footage that makes sense for it, just like show videos I took while I was recording the song. I don't know. It's very much
Also,
like diaristic and like travelogue type thing that way.
it's crazy what you can do with a phone nowadays too.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
I mean,
Speaking
sorry.
of that,
Oh yeah.
go ahead. You finish your thought because I keep interrupting you.
No, I was honestly, I was gonna talk about my own experience making a music video, and sorry to plug my own music, but I made a music video with my phone once, and it turned out
Yeah.
a lot better than I expected.
Right. Exactly.
But you can go ahead.
You should send it to me after we get off the call.
Yeah, we'll do.
Yeah. Um, no, I was just gonna say, speaking of that, like this is a needlessly like convoluted story, but I kept speaking of like shooting video footage and such. I kept seeing kept getting ads on Instagram for like this really tiny camera thing. I think a lot of people has probably also gotten this ad because it's like it's a drop shipping thing. Like I was about to buy it and I looked into it and people were like, you know, there's nothing wrong with the camera, but you can buy it cheaper off of like Alibaba and like sites like that.
Hmm.
Because like they're just buying them and then drop shipping them more expensive. So I bought the cheaper version. And I'm kind of excited about it because like the footage is like not good looking. I mean, it looks like a really old like digital camera, which I kind of like the aesthetic of anyways. But my plan with it is to just like you said, there's all of these ways to process footage in a way that you couldn't before. Like I mean, I have like an Adobe subscription, so like I can use After Effects and such. And so I found a really good, convincing like tutorial on just like getting the kind of VHS camera look, or just kind of the more lo-fi look. And so you know, I can just shoot some footage on that tiny camera. It's like the size of like a keychain, and I'm just going to be shooting stuff all the time over the next like year, and just I can put that footage through a VHS filter and like make something that I'm like happy with. And you know, sometimes it feels kind of like cheap to do that. Like I'd love to be the person who buys an actual VHS camera, buys actual VHS tapes, actually shoots on VHS tapes, buys a VHS recorder and the cables and everything to be able to transfer it onto your laptop and then do all of that. I mean, I actually did it in the past. Some of my early videos were shot on VHS because my friend was really into that stuff. But you know, that's always a question of like convenience versus like. Here's my thing. Would I rather not make the music video at all because I'm always putting off getting that VHS camera? Or would I rather just shoot the video this way and end up with a finished product rather than end up with nothing? You know, hopefully one day I'll get around to the VHS camera, but like I might as well do this in the meantime, you know? Better
So
to just make the thing.
yeah, I think from what I'm understanding is that you can just make something with whatever you have at the moment.
I mean, a little bit, yeah. yeah, like it's again the thing I said earlier about like whatever is like making you stuck or whatever is frustrating or like unsatisfying or not fun about the process, like you have to find a way to get rid of it, because like I really can't live without making things. It has to be part of my day to day somehow. If I go a couple weeks without doing it, everything starts to feel. I just don't feel as good.
Yeah.
So when I don't have time to sit down at my studio and like finish a whole song in like 6 hours or like start a whole song in 6 hours, um, there's got to be something smaller. Like I can do like one pixel art thing or like shoot something on my camera. Not everything has to be the most ambitious thing on earth.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you're looking forward to this year?
I'm traveling again in April. That's going to be really fun. I'm really excited to get these albums out. It's really funny because like I have been releasing a lot of music the last year or so, but like I have way more that I just haven't been able to release. And so it feels like I can't like kind of fully invest in new material until this stuff is out, and that's been really frustrating to an extent because like I am still working on new stuff and recording new stuff, but it feels like I want these albums out so that I can start in a new album and kind of think of it as an album rather than just some new material that I'm messing around with while I'm finishing up the old stuff. So I'm excited to be able to kind of like wipe the slate clean and start over. Um, yeah, because there's I have material for a B-sides album too. Or just stuff to finish. I don't know. So yeah, I'm excited for those to come out. I'm excited to travel again, and yeah,
I relate to all those things.
for sure.
Is there anything you'd like to plug in the meantime?
Mm. I finished like a really short 15-minute game that I worked on the last two
Oh, I
months,
remember
kind
that.
of last winter. Yeah, and I'm gonna share that pretty soon. Yeah, I figure on the site you'll put a link to like my socials, but
Yeah, I'll
if
also
if
plug
you've
it at
got
the end of
if you've
this.
yeah,
Or
if you've
I can
watched this
plug it
whole
right now too.
video, yeah, if you've watched this whole video and are still asking what is this guy's music, where can I find it? My project name is Orchid Mantis, and it can be found on Spotify and Apple Music and Tidal and all the streaming
Bandcamp.
services, or my Bandcamp. Bandcamp is always the go-to for me.
Yeah, it's always Bandcamp
Yeah.
is always great because when you buy an album or something, it goes directly to the artist. So I
Exactly.
recommend that.
There's no yeah, that's always been crazy. Like it's not that people give money to Bandcamp and then Bandcamp pays out to you. It's just a PayPal link. Like people don't realize the Bandcamp buy now button is a PayPal link. It's just goes straight to you. It's great.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting nowadays with streaming services and all of that. That could be a whole conversation in itself.
Oh yeah. Do you want to touch on it quickly?
I was trying to think of a question for that.
Well,
Is there
why don't
anything
we?
is there anything about
I
streaming services that maybe you think could be better?
I'll answer that, but also, yeah, I feel like I haven't been like back and forth conversational enough with you. So like I said, I'd love to like talk about this because you've got experience with it too, and just the streaming in general. But I think streaming is weird, especially for me, because a lot of my audience is on streaming, and so I have a lot to be thankful for with streaming. Um, like I can't not be like thankful for that, and so it does put me in a weird position where like I do believe that artists should be that streaming is not like sustainable as it is now. Like it's like there's growth that's going to need to happen because similar to a lot of industries right now, like Uber and these like AI generators, like just all of these different business models that are just coasting on like maybe making money someday. Like Spotify isn't fully profitable yet, or at least they claim they're not profitable yet. And the artists that make the content for Spotify are also not happy with their arrangement. Like, so it feels like nobody's making money.
Yeah.
And the customers really, us listening to music are the people who are really getting the most benefit from it, which I mean isn't a bad thing. I mean everybody wants to be able to listen to any music ever, whenever they want ever. Like, but I don't know. I don't have answers. I like I like the model that I think SoundCloud does now that people have talked about, which is the I can't remember the name of the model, but essentially it's like you pay a subscription cost. You listen to certain artists, and instead of artists getting paid per stream, your subscription amount is billed or is sent out to the artists that you listen to with that subscription specifically.
Oh wow.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, I never
Yeah.
knew
So
about
so
that.
like it so if you like listened to like, and it's based on how much you streamed each of those artists. So like if you mostly listen, like if half of the music you listen to with your subscription in a given month was was like Taylor Swift or whatever, then like 250 of that $5 subscription would go to them, you know.
Hmm.
And the rest would go to whatever other artist you listen to. But like if you didn't listen to an artist at all, then your subscription amount doesn't go towards them. And the reason why that's important is because it is provably more favorable for small artists and less favorable for major artists. Um, so it's major labels aren't super like into the idea. Um, and so I doubt it would take off, but it's also better for the streaming services too, because they also don't have to pay out as much. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's the whole thing. It's just a totally different model, and I think that that's what we need is like exploration of more models. Yeah, but like, I mean, how do you feel about I guess just like that, like the ethics of streaming and like where do you see it going?
Hmm. To be honest, I think I don't really know because it's really tough to say
Right.
because you can't exactly predict the future.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in my experience, it as a smaller, I definitely have a smaller audience, and I think I don't know, maybe I don't have enough. I do have experience with this stuff, but maybe I don't have enough to really give a great answer on where I think it is going.
Mm. I mean, like, do you think? I mean, I guess the question that I find interesting about streaming is like, do you think that? I mean, I feel like most artists would always say like streaming is like a net negative, um, and I wouldn't even necessarily argue on that, but um, do you think that like what are some positives I guess you see with streaming?
Pauses, I think, would be just the convenience to
Mm-hmm.
have, because I think in general it's really easy to just put your music on to those streaming services compared
Mm-hmm.
to selling your music in a actual store or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like it's the fact that you can just put something on there for free, like which has like positives and negatives too, and that like people can just toss out release after release without really like caring about the quality. That's like a negative, but also like you can you can um you can get your music heard um without having to pay to press like hundreds of CDs or vinyl or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but like I think that I guess the thing that I keep coming back to is streaming is like how much of like a monkey's paw situation it is, in that like there are lots of small artists who who have their music up on Bandcamp and they sell the album that they released for like $8, and nobody buys it on Bandcamp, but they have like 10, 20,000 monthly listeners, or even less, or maybe 5,000 monthly listeners. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. It's more people that are going to their Bandcamp. 5,000 people are not going to their Bandcamp,
Yeah.
and probably a lot of those listeners to their Spotify page or Apple Music, whatever page, are somewhat algorithmic in that, like, some of it's radio play, some of it is shuffle play, some of it is like people who found it from a playlist on Spotify that somebody else made. But that's kind of the thing that makes streaming so difficult to really wrap your head around in terms of its influence, is that like you can have like so many people listening to your music, and you're thinking to yourself, if every single one of those people like supported me on Bandcamp, it would be like massively better for me.
Yeah.
But those people would never find my Bandcamp without having found me through Spotify. Plus, like, half of the like most of those people would not go to my Bandcamp and pay the $8, $5, whatever for it. That's just they're consuming my music because it is free. The same reason why in the early days of the internet, everybody released their music for free. Everybody put it up on MySpace, a download link. Because that was the whole point. Was like, how do I have the best chance of people listening to my music? I'll just drop it for free wherever. And that's the thing, is like, it's impossible to gauge like whether you are better off or worse off because of Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also kind of like part of the business model, is like that they can kind of hide the true, I guess, hide the true beneficiaries of this system behind the kind of idea of like exposure. And like, it's the same as like live shows and such. It's always been that you get paid in exposure.
Yeah. I'm really glad we're having this conversation, because from my experience, Spotify has been the most attraction I've gotten for anything I've posted online. I think right
Mm-hmm.
now I have around 3,500 monthly listeners,
Mm-hmm.
and that's there's definitely some pros to that, but at the same
Yeah.
time, it's also hard to get traction or get anyone to support when it comes to buying things that you make as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's like a step-by-step thing. I mean, I I kind of, when I was starting out, like, that was an issue that I had, or I kind of like, I got lucky in that I was able to kind of join up with a small label, Z Tapes at the time, and they kind of had like a somewhat built-in audience, and I was able to. They were able to make tapes of my stuff, and the tapes sold because people, there was kind of an audience that bought a lot of what Z Tapes made if they listened to the music and liked it. And so I think like labels are still very valuable these days in that sense. Um, Labels are way less powerful and important as they used to be. I mean, it's an enormous change, but especially for smaller artists, and especially for like kind of establishing yourself, labels are still super important. It's just that they're more like curators or like tastemakers now than they are like financial financial imperatives. Like you used to absolutely have to be with a label, or else nobody was going to hear your music because it would not be on the radio and it would not
Yeah.
be in stores. Where else are they going to hear you? A local show? Yes, but then you're going to have to hire a booker too, and usually the label would get you with a booker.
Yeah. It makes me think about how things are always changing.
Oh yeah, that's, I mean, that's the thing. It's like I maybe they're changing faster than they used to, but it's like, I guess it's normal to like be like uh 14 years old and music is completely different from how it is now that you're like an adult, fully grown. And it feels like it's been no time at all. And everything is so different, than just like so many years ago. But like it really feels like things are changing fast. It really feels like the music industry is so different from how it used to be, and so much has happened so quickly. And like you look at like what changed from the 70s to the 90s. Nothing too big, really. I don't know. I mean, that was 90s were like the dawn of the internet, but like you still went out and bought a record. You still made most of your money from touring. You still sold merch. You still had to be signed to a label. The genres would change, but like the general system that we had agreed upon was the same. And now it's completely different. And like now everybody was talking about streaming, but now it's like TikTok. Now it's like YouTube and all these like content creation stuff that has music in the background. And like, what are we going to do about that? It's crazy.
I'm also thinking about if I was living back then, though, would we also think that about even further in the past?
Probably, it's like it's just I can't remember what the phrase is, but yeah, you're just blind to like the you can't know what it was like to live through a certain time if you didn't live through it. I mean, it's that simple. It probably feels really different for them.
It's fun to think about, though.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If there was a time period you could live in, what would it be besides now?
If it had to be sometime like in the past, a good ways away from now. What are my cats even messing with? I'm gonna ignore that. Maybe it's getting picked up by the mic, maybe not. I think they're messing with something in the kitchen. I'll check on that in a bit.
I can hear it, but it's not too loud.
In the past, maybe like I'm just going to give an extremely stupid answer, which is that I'd love to live in like the Enlightenment era, because everybody was into weird like mystical stuff and things weren't quite as bad as they were before in terms of hygiene and everything else. Still, things were still pretty bad. I would probably have a horrible life in the Enlightenment era, but I
at least you'd be enlightened.
Something about the aesthetic. Yeah, something about the aesthetic. I'm just like what would it be like to be like that? And also like if you could bring one thing back, you could accomplish so much with like one little modern device back in that era. I mean, that's what I do is I try to become like a cult leader or something, or a guru, some sort of mystical guy. Not a cult leader so much as just like I'd write a really cool book,
This just gave me an idea for a movie. What if there was a movie about a time traveler who just time traveled and took pictures of old time periods?
Yeah. Yeah, like it would be interesting to like try to come up with a conflict for that though.
Yeah.
Like the story would have to go somewhere, but
I think it could be actually easy because if you go back far in the past, there's probably a lot of conflicts already happening in the past, and you can make it based around
there'd be a lot you could write about. But the idea of like, it's actually surprising to me that we get less, or that we don't get more fiction about like that's anachronistic that way of like certain modern appliances or certain modern conveniences being kind of brought back into the past, and like how people react to that, because that's like even online you see memes about it all the time. Like that is just an inherently fascinating concept to us. It's like, what will happen if you play like hyperpop for a medieval child?
I remember seeing a meme once about this guy showing a phone to a bunch of cavemen, and one of them asks, "How do you make it?" And then we have no idea. Or at least
I don't know.
Most of us.
Yeah. I mean, that's the funniest thing is like, I love that meme so much because it's so true about how like we like associate the miraculousness of the technology around us with like our own like intellect, it's because of me that I have these like nice lamps and like a TV in front of me and all this cool stuff. It's like you have nothing to do with that. You were just born at the right time.
Yeah,
Got lucky in the yeah.
that's why it's also interesting when people say that people were a lot stupider back in the day, but there's not really
Hmm.
any research that proves that.
Yeah, I mean it's I bet IQ has always probably been about the same. I mean, at least for the last like 500 years. I'm sure IQ is pretty much the same. It's just a matter of what you're taught in school. Like, I'm sure that people were like dumber back then in that like they weren't as well educated, but like
Yeah.
that's not a matter of like how smart you are. Like you give that medieval child again like a modern day, you know, elementary education, and it's like any of us.
Yeah, basically.
Which is also important to remember in terms of like we aren't as smart as we think we are these days. Like we're still just mostly like products of impulse and like emotion, which like I don't have a problem. I think emotion is like the most important aspect of being human, but like
Yeah.
it's that's the thing is like intelligence is overvalued in modern society. Maybe that's a hot take, but that's I'm actually going to stick by that. I don't think that like does that make you happy? Does it make you happy to be smart? No. Being smart just lets you accomplish things, which like is cool, but like
Yeah.
accomplishing things is like one long like treadmill. You chase certain goals and it feels good for like a second when you accomplish those goals, but it just turns into like doing the next thing. And that's kind of like the trap that we fall into with productivity is like it like you can be happy just kind of being on that treadmill of productivity, just like working and working and working and accomplishing goal after goal. But like if you think that there's some destination coming that's like gonna make everything different or like make you like feel better than you do while you're working on those things, it's not the case. You have to be able to be happy and totally satisfied like working on the goals rather than thinking that you will be satisfied once you achieve them, you know. Like I definitely take that approach with music is like if I'm not having fun making the song, then like the you know potential goal of like releasing the next album, that's not gonna like feel any better than making the songs. It's probably gonna be a lot more boring, honestly. So like yeah.
I think there is a fine line though between letting yourself be stupid in the sense that you're not afraid to make mistakes and just being crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So it's
I mean, yeah,
important to balance the two.
yeah, yeah. There's obviously a balance, and I think like, and I mean, I don't mean to say that I don't like value or enjoy trying to kind of, I guess, just trying to learn things. Like yeah, like just trying to become a person who has a greater understanding of like what's around. I mean, there's a million different ways that like uh, is a net positive for you in your life, like day to day. Um, I just think that that in the same way that like being, you know, like being smart doesn't like make you inherently more like deserving of a good life or more deserving of success, you know. Like it's the unfortunate reality of the world is just that everything is a lot more impersonal than that. Like most people who are successful because of luck more than anything else. Most people who are starving in the streets are also mostly just a product of bad luck. Like which isn't that you should not take responsibility for your own life, but more just that you should always value yourself and our trust it like you that everything that goes wrong in your life isn't like always your fault, you know, and that like you can just be a good person who something bad happened to, or be a bad person that something good happened to, you know. Like you kind of just have to ride like the current and do the best you can in any given moment. um yeah.
I don't know why that made me really emotional.
I was
It
just spitballing.
it also reminded me of something I was told once with anxiety in particular. Anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
in a way, is kind of just riding waves. You have
Mm-hmm.
to just get through it.
Oh yeah. You just you just trust it. You end up where you hope you will, and if not, then it's you have to always be adapting. You always have to like I've kind of had experience with that the last couple of years, and that like I've had some experiences where I was really certain that my life was going in a certain direction, and it would kind of all fall apart, and then come back together into something that wasn't what I expected it to be. And I kind of learned that the more that I tied myself down to any particular conception of like this is what's supposed to happen, this wasn't supposed to happen, etc., the more that I would be missing out on the blessings that were kind of, if I read between the lines. Yeah, I was gonna say, in terms of like anxiety and like stress and that kind of thing, like that's something that I really practice day to day. Specifically, is like I think I'm like, no, I mean stress and anxiety are like, I mean, anxiety is a lot more uncontrollable, and stress is also kind of uncontrollable. But like stress is like easier to manage than anxiety, I think, in general. And my strategy for managing his stress has always been to consider how stress is only like valuable if it changes something. Like it like the part of the reason why we don't let ourselves stop stressing about something is because like it feels like important. It feels important. It feels important that you're stressed out. Like, why am I stressed out about this exam tomorrow? Because the exam is important. Because the stress is a motivator for me to. It is the body's natural reaction to knowing that it's supposed to study for that exam. And so I try to think about stress that way. And if I'm stressing about something that I don't have any control over, that's what I have to remind myself. Is it like that stress is not productive? The stress isn't going to make me change something. And if there is something that I need to change, then I sit down and I write down the plan and I write down exactly what I need to do. I really sit with the stress and think through it. And like, this is what I need to do to tackle this. And this is the best I can do with the situation. And then if I start to feel stressed, I look at that list and I make sure I'm doing what's on that list. And that's like, I just simplify it. Because if you can't control it, I mean, the I think it's called the serenity prayer, is that like,
Mm.
grant me the wisdom to know what I can, I think it's like to recognize what I
What
can, what
what I can
what
control
I
and what I can't control.
yeah, basically.
I
I
don't think
can't
that's
remember the
exactly
exact
how it
wording.
is.
No.
I, it's funny.
It's frustrating because
I heard that
it's
exact
frustrating
thing
because I
from
saw it the
Adam.
other day.
I heard that exact thing from Adam Savage.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
don't know if you're familiar with his work.
I know him. Yeah,
Sorry, can I think for a second?
absolutely.
You can always cut out these parts too.
Whatever you choose, I don't mind.
I'm having a lot of fun chatting though, because this is a lot of stuff that I found that so far I've really related to a lot of the stuff you've been saying,
Mm,
and it's just giving me a lot to think about. I
for
don't know how
sure.
to explain it.
It's been fun for me too. I will say I'm unusually self-conscious today. I'm thinking to myself like, I hope I don't sound like conceited or whatever. Like
No
I
worries.
I
You're not.
I don't know. I have a lot of things to say, but I don't think that that I just have a lot of thoughts.
That's not a bad thing. I do too.
Yeah, I guess. That's how it is like some people you can like just ramble back and forth with them all night and get into like an argument and just debate on everything and like have so much happening, and there are other people where that's like really not how they like to operate, and I try to be kind of conscious of that, um,
Mm.
especially with who I'm around. I have to kind of like, figure that out
I
person to
think I'm the
person.
same way,
Hmm.
but yeah, I don't mind rambling at all. It makes my job easier too as an interviewer.
Fair enough, yeah.
It's also I found that in my life I'm also kind of a rambler. I noticed even when it comes to text messages and stuff, I don't know what I don't know if it's a problem per se, but sometimes I get self-conscious about it because I can send a lot of messages to people and I don't always get responses back. But at the same
Right.
time, I also understand that people are just busy, but I still can't
Yeah.
help but feel bad about it.
I can relate. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's just a matter of I mean, it's like on a baseline. Like I've been told by people that I'm like needlessly kind of wordy, or
Mm,
like I say simple things in way too many words. That can happen with texting too.
mm.
And also you can just be someone who like overshares, and like it's I think with that type of stuff, it's like it's sure, you can like work on things about yourself, or like try to bring yourself towards like an image of like what you want yourself to be, but also like the other half of it is just the people you hang around, like whether the people you're around like you for you, and like uh are people who prefer to hang out with people like the person you are. It's a weird way to phrase it, but like most of my close friends, they don't care whether it's a long text or a short text. They prefer people who are very kind of out there, I guess, which I think makes more natural company for someone like me.
I think I prefer that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'd rather be friends with people who like being around me because I'm me instead of
Mm-hmm.
trying to be someone I'm not.
Yeah, yeah. You feel like you have to censor yourself less, and uh, I mean, that's yeah. It's like I can imagine a version of myself who was less lucky in the personal connections they made growing up, and would probably be a very anxious person. Um, and I think I got very lucky and was around the right people who made me feel comfortable enough that I've become like I'm a lot more social than I was when I was younger. Partly for that reason, I think it's
Mm,
like that's the thing is it's like it's a lot of personality traits like that, of like how social you are and how outgoing you are and that kind of thing, are like also just so much a product of how you're raised and your experiences growing up. It's not like a genetic thing. I mean, it is a genetic thing, but like it's both. It's a age old nature versus nurture thing. The answer is
mhm,
it's both.
for sure. What are other places you've been besides Japan?
um I have family in Sweden, so I've been to Sweden many, many, many times. When I was younger, my parents did travel a lot, so I did a good amount of traveling to different countries when I was younger. But like, I don't remember that very much. And since I kind of like since I've been out of high school and such, and like college, and I've been out of college for years, but like in that sort of period of my life, I until now, I have been back to Sweden, have been to Berlin, I've been to Korea, I've been to South Korea, I've been to Japan, um, yeah. Um, I didn't travel that much at all for like years, especially when I was in college and like a while after. And then there was just I reconnected with someone and visited them, and was like, oh, this is actually really fun, especially like kind of traveling by myself. Like, it was very different from when you travel with family. That's like completely different experience. Um, and I really just like fell in love with it. Like it's just I love the especially solo traveling. because you really get this like chance to kind of free yourself of a lot of the things that normally distract you from just sitting with your thoughts. You know, like even if you're like single and you live alone and like you're just in your own head every day, you're still like responsible for going to work and responsible for working on your hobbies and responsible for like cleaning the house and responsible for buying groceries and a million things that you get done every single day and that kind of keep you keep you occupied. But then when you're traveling, a lot of those things end up on the back burner, or you don't have to worry about them at all. And so you really do spend a lot of time like just sitting on a train thinking about something, or walking through the city thinking about something. And all that thinking I really enjoy, which maybe that's a nightmare for some people. I know some people really don't like to have to sit with their thoughts for so long, but I most of the time I enjoy it. It's a nice change of pace. I always come back feeling like I've learned a lot about myself, and I really like that.
Are there any countries that you think have had your, or which countries do you think have had your favorite food for traveling?
Mm,
I know that's a hard question usually.
I know that. I mean, I really haven't been that many places, but I know that. Well, first of all, Korean food is better than Japanese food. I love Japanese food, but Korean food has like crack in it or something. It's so good. There's it just like I make a lot of Korean food at home too. I, yeah, I don't even know enough about Korean cooking to be able to say why it is good or anything. I just really enjoy it. And I also like I'm also going to staunchly defend Swedish food, because people like to talk about how flavorless Swedish food is and how weird it is, and they got like the fish that they've like pickled for like years or whatever. You can look up a surströmming, which is like a herring that's been like fermented for like years on end, and it's like uh, it'll make you pass out just from the smell of it. But like that's not like your average Swedish food. Your average Swedish food is pretty boring, but like they make some really good hot dogs, and they make
And
some really
meatballs.
good huh?
And
Yeah, the
meatballs.
Swedish meatballs. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But also like my whole thing with Swedish food is their sandwiches. Their sandwiches and their pastries are where it's at. Sweden's got
Mm.
incredible pastries and incredible sandwiches. They will literally just take like a slice of bread and they'll butter the bread, and then they'll put cheese on top of the butter. And it'll be really good cheese. And then they'll take a cucumber slice and they'll put cucumber slices on top of the cheese, and like it's simple, but like it tastes really good. I think I just grew up going to Sweden a lot as a kid. I think it's just a personal thing for me. I'm not doing a good job of like pushing
It
for
sounds good.
Swedish food, but it's like a childhood thing.
I'm sure if I looked up, I'm gonna look up Swedish food right now. I'm probably gonna find some good pictures.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that looks good.
I don't think its reputation is quite as bad as British food, but people trash talk Swedish food.
I think there's good food in a lot of places, even if you don't expect it.
Yeah, everybody's found a great. I mean, yeah, I used to be really picky about what I ate. Like that's how I was growing up. I was really, really, really picky. And that's funny to think back on, because like nowadays I'm definitely one of those people who just like it's like, oh, I'm gonna do Thai food this day. I'm gonna do Indian food this day. I'm gonna go get burgers this day. I'm gonna go get sushi this day. Once you're doing that, it's hard to come back from it, because like it starts to feel really boring to just eat the same thing every day. Uh, and I used to be exactly one of those people. I would just make mac and cheese every single day. My health is probably thankful for that.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm kind of at that point right now just because I'm in college and it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
hard for I really need to get better at going out more and just treating
Mm-hmm.
myself.
I know what you mean. I mean, even now, I'm very like reclusive. I think that's kind of part of the thing with traveling is like I'm such a homebody that like the few like trips that I take are like very important to like have a change of pace from that, from just being stuck in the house all day. But also, my advice is like get really buy a rice cooker, get really into making rice because there's so many different kinds of rice bowls you can make and so many different things you can do with rice. And like rice cookers are really nice because you can just toss them in there, wait 20 minutes, and it's done. And you can be doing something else while you're like waiting that 20 minutes. So it's like it's kind of the easiest way to cook like very filling food for me. Because if I like, if I make like spaghetti, I have to like sit there while it's boiling to make sure it doesn't boil over. If I fry like eggs or whatever, basically everything you have to stand there to actually make the food. The rice cooker is nice because it's just like you toss the rice in there, you wait 20 minutes, it's done. You haven't done anything else to make that happen. And there's a million ways to season rice. You can fry it. There's a million different rice bowls you can make. It's yeah.
Speaking of, since we were talking about anxiety earlier, I think when it comes to cooking too, I get anxious about burning things, or
Mm,
I don't know, for some reason I just get anxious, and then I want to cook more, but I can't
mm,
overcome that feeling, whatever it is.
hmm. I mean, to use what I said earlier, you can try every kind of cooking that doesn't involve heat, and then kind of work your way up. You might find, if you get really really good at making deli sandwiches, one day you might think like, you know what, maybe I can take this next step. Um,
That does sound good.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I do
I want
just
to get
like
into deli sandwiches. I've been getting like Jimmy John's all the time lately, which is like a sandwich brand. I don't know whether they have that in Hawaii, but
I
been
use
really into deli meats.
Hawaiian rolls a lot to make sandwiches.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
They're too good.
Yeah, I'm on a sandwich kick right now. I don't know what that's about.
What's your favorite kind of meat to get usually?
I'm so dumb. For me it's just uh they're all just pork, but it's like pepperoni, salami, capicola, like a bunch of Italian meats essentially. Like from the sandwich shops, I always get like the like whatever their kind of Italian specialty sandwiches. Because I like salty things.
Mm.
Like I like salty meat,
You should
and
definitely go to Italy.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I like sharp cheese and I like meat that is salted or cured like that. Because I guess like salami and pepperoni, and all those are all like cured meats. Yeah, even though most deli meat is cured, I don't know what I'm talking about at all.
You would love it in Italy.
I'm sure. Oh yeah, yeah. My one of my friends studied in Italy the last couple of years. He always tries to get me to go back with him, so I should do that sometime. I'm sure I'd love their food.
Yeah, it's great. I went there last, no, 2023 I went there for
Hmm.
my mom and my stepdad's wedding. And that was a lot of fun.
I believe it. I believe it. Did you see like where were you in Italy? Were you in like Rome?
We went to a lot of places. So we did go to
Yeah.
Rome. We went to Matera. We went to
Hmm.
Sicily. We went to Fravignon, Palermo. Where else? We
Yeah,
went
y'all
to
really did go all over.
different places in Sicily too. It was cool.
I from what I see, it looks so pretty.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll have to
Mm.
send you some pictures I took when I was there,
Yeah, for sure.
and of the food.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
Unless there's anything else you want to talk about, I think it's a good time to wrap up the episode then.
yeah, yeah, it's a good stopping point. But yeah, no, this is a lot of fun. Like I said, I enjoy any opportunity to just ramble on about stuff, and you had some definitely interesting questions, so it was a lot to think about.
I'm glad, and I've been looking forward to this for a while, so I'm glad that the stars finally aligned and we could have a
Yes,
chat.
yes, we finally made it happen.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
and I'll text you. Good luck with all of your endeavors.
I appreciate it. You as well. And for anyone who we mentioned it earlier, but for anyone who may have forgotten, You can find Orchid Mantis's work on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Bandcamp, all that good stuff, YouTube.
Mhm.
And yeah, I really recommend that you check it out. I'll also link his work in the description below. And thanks everyone for listening or watching.
Thanks for having me on. Take care.
We love you.